Everyone makes mistakes.
And growing our own vegetable gardens gives us the opportunity to make multiple mistakes per day.
What starts as beginner faux pas gives way to veteran errors. Compounding issues and limited timelines means reversing the outcome of an egregious error is usually out of the question.
But mistakes are where we do our best learning.
The lessons we learn from our failures stick way longer and tend to teach us more about gardening than the easy successes do. When a crop does good, it's expected to, and we harvest what we expect to harvest.
But when a plant or crop fails, well, that's when we can make the most of a bad situation.
Because when something doesn't go right in our gardens, our tendency is to research every possible angle where we went wrong, learning valuable insight along the way.
So today, let's learn from a tiny subset of my many mistakes. Let's take my top 5 flubs from this past season and make sure that they never happen again.
A plant, a crop, an entire garden. These things ride on an unwavering timeline based on their life cycle.
And we use the knowledge of these life cycles, such as we do with this garlic here, to reap the most amazing harvests.
Anything that disrupts this gravy train, no matter how small, can stall or even prevent a viable harvest.
And this is where our gardening mistakes come in, which is interesting because I'm so in tune with the needs and wants of every crop that I plant.
I'm always so hyper-focused on giving them everything required for optimal growth.
But it's this narrowed down vision that leads me to my first mistake, and that's overplanting, especially seedlings.
Now, it's not necessarily a deal breaker for success in that my main crops that eventually get planted in the garden, well, they're not really affected by this. What is affected though? My time and my resources. Don't get me wrong, it's always a good idea to plant more seedlings in start than you need, but it has to be within reason. A few dozen extra seedlings here or there to make sure that you're covered is smart. Hundreds of cells of wasted seedlings is not. Next year, that cycle stops.
Another mistake I made this year was supplementing my garden soil with cheap, unproven compost.
A new brand being offered locally, literally 30% cheaper than all the others. But for good reason.
You know, over the years, I've heard some real horror stories of actual toxic compost completely killing plants and crops. Fortunately for me, that wasn't the case here.
Still, what I did get by trying to save a few bucks was poor water retention, poor aeration, and plants that generally suffered. Unfortunately for me, I happened to use this cheap compost on some really important container setups, ones that I had high hopes for. So that was a bit of a bummer. But live and learn. This next mistake though was totally on me.
And that was underwatering.
This summer for us was the driest on record. Unbearably high temperatures, but even worse, no precipitation. For like 3 months.
For the Pacific Northwest, that's virtually unheard of.
Normally, I get so caught up with the idea in the back of my mind that too much watering leads to bad things. Anaerobic conditions, root rot, or leaching of nutrients. I'm always very careful with how much I water my plants, and a heavily mulched soil in my climate, well, it's normally bulletproof.
No question, the weather's only going to get crazier. I need to be more adaptable. I need to grow for the current conditions that I see in my garden and not for the historical averages. Big mistake? that I'm not going to make again. Another big mistake that I did this year that I'm not going to do next is leave my crops up too long.
Trying to squeeze out that last pea pod or maximize that pepper ripeness. I've always depended on a high turnover of plants, and in my climate, I'm afforded the luxury of multi-cropping most years. But it only works if I'm quick enough.
Instead of leaving these peas on to the bitter end, I'd have been better off replanting the whole deal and getting a brand new harvest altogether.
And instead of fighting nature and leaving all these peppers on here to ripen at the end of the season, it would have been better to get them out and get a quick crop of carrots in. So many instances where I left a crop going on way too long, past the point of productivity. Not only is it extremely inefficient, at certain times of the year, it invites a crazy amount of pests that you normally wouldn't get. So, we'll get that fixed up for next growing season? No question.
And finally, the fifth mistake that I make this year was the feeling that I no longer make mistakes.
I guess more accurately, it was kind of a sense of overconfidence. Thinking that I could always overcome deficiencies, whatever form they come in, with experience. Too much shade? It's okay, I can make it work. Missed my planting window? It's fine, I can still make it happen. Too many times this year I've tried to push the envelope beyond what was possible for the crop, and it was due to overconfidence. Well, not anymore. I'm going to make my garden life as easy as possible and stay within the parameters of each plant. Less work for me and far better harvests in the future. Mistakes are a part of life, especially with gardening. They can set you back a little, or even a lot, losing an entire season in the process.
But without a doubt, they're among gardening's finest teachable moments. The instances where we can learn the skills to level up our gardening game long term. Hey, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Just try to learn from them.
Hey, thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate the support more than you know. And if you're getting value from these videos, please like and share them to spread the word and help your fellow gardener to grow better.